Watch this.
And for you on this Friday on Beyond the 208. After an unsuccessful execution in Idaho more than a year ago, the state is one step closer to making the firing squad the main method of execution to put an inmate to death. Now on the governor's desk, but what comes next if he signs it? A sports gear brand hosted a moon landing party, but it wasn't just to watch the exciting moment, as material used in their jackets played a role in the journey to outer space. Thanks for being with us here on your Friday, and we are into the part of the Idaho legislative session where it can be hard to track what's going on. Rapid fire action from the committees all the way up to the governor's desk. And this week, the state of Idaho, they made some history while also looking to change the course of history. Let's take a look at some of the notable ins and outs from the week that was. We'll pick up the week on Tuesday. A first look at a new Medicaid reform bill passing a House committee that day. The latest version has a broad work or volunteer requirement within it, 20 hours a week. Previous versions also included a provision to repeal Medicaid expansion as a cost-saving measure if certain requirements weren't met. This latest version does not. Critics say that's an improvement, but they still have concerns.
This is not about requiring people to work. It's about requiring people to navigate very extensive paperwork proving it. And people run afoul of paperwork. And then when you have all these working people kicked off of Medicaid, they turn up at hospitals, they have no insurance. We're right back where we were before Medicaid expansion, with rural hospitals feeling the strain, going out of business, passing on costs to all those that are insured.
Supporters believe this one will make it to Governor Little's desk, a move to save future Idahoans money. Thursday, later in the week, it passed the full House. It's now in the hands of the Senate. Wednesday, a bill to make the firing squad the main method of execution for the state of Idaho for people on death row. It passed the full Senate 28-7, sending it to the governor's desk for his signature. It previously passed the House 58-11.
Idaho had a failed attempt recently to carry out a lethal injection due to an inability to establish an IV. So, Senators, I view the firing squad as a more humane way to carry out executions for those on death row.
The firing squad is currently Idaho's secondary method of execution. Before all this can go into effect, even with the governor's signature, the state of Idaho needs to build a firing squad facility at the Department of Corrections. Thursday, Governor Brad Little signed House Bill 40, the $253 million tax relief bill, which will reduce the income tax rate from 5.69% down to 5.3%. It also expands the tax exemption for military pensions and gets rid of the capital gains tax on precious metals. House Speaker Mike Moyle sponsored the bill.
Yay. How do you feel about that? I feel really good. That's a good thing. I think that's the biggest income tax relief in Idaho history. It's a good start. We need to keep doing it.
Lawmakers also tackled an interesting question Thursday. What if you seriously disagreed with an evacuation order during a flood or a wildfire? Should Idahoans have the right to refuse for whatever reason? Well, a bill to accomplish that is now waiting for action from Governor Little. House Bill 97 allows people to refuse evacuations orders, but it requires them to accept all risks and reimburse rescue costs if their choice ends up being one they regret and they have to call for help. One lawmaker spoke from their own experience for an endorsement.
Several years ago, we were in the middle of a forest fire, a huge forest fire, and we stayed and protected our ranch, and we saved all but one building. So this bill does work, and we knew the responsibility that we had by staying.
Finally on Friday, a proposed amendment to the Idaho Constitution that Idahoans would get to vote on in 2026. It would designate English as the official language of the state of Idaho.
English shall be used in all public proceedings, public documents, public institutions, and all other public acts in any public institutions in Idaho. Our current administration signed an executive order doing this for the entire United States. So we're just in line with what's going on.
Again, the proposal needs to clear both the House and Senate, and if it does, it would end up on the 2026 ballot. And that's a legislative wrap. For an in-depth look at all our reporting from the 208 and the State House this week, you can check out the KTVB YouTube channel and KTVB.com. You can also watch previous episodes on demand, the 208 in its entirety if you ever miss one, on the KTVB Plus app. You can find those apps on your smartphone or smart TV. All right, earlier this week, we told you about a number of food poisoning complaints that Central District Health received over the last few months. CDH says that the complaints were about unlicensed food vendors in the Treasure Valley who are advertising on social media. An interesting conversation. Ashman Shumpert, you've been working on trying to figure out what these complaints are really about. You spoke with Central District Health to get some clarification. What do we know here on Friday?
Yeah, I'm going to go through a few clarifications, but first I want to start by saying this has actually been an increase in complaints that they've seen this year. Central District Health jurisdiction covers all of Ada, Elmore Valley, and Boise counties. CDH tells me all 10 complaints about underground food vendors since the beginning of this year have been for vendors in Ada County. They say the number of complaints in just the first few months of this year is close to the total number of complaints for all of 2024. They've received 10 complaints this year. In their press release Wednesday, the CDH says they received, quote, food poisoning complaints. We asked for further clarification on what that meant today. They tell us about the 10 complaints received this year, no one has reported getting sick, but instead people are concerned of customers potentially getting sick because they suspect the vendor is not licensed. CDH says the complaints are for operations out of private homes or apartments.
It's the risk of foodborne illness. It gives the unknown factors. What that kitchen may look like. Is it sanitary enough? Were the kitchen surfaces cleaned properly, right? Whether or not food handlers wore gloves while handling ready-to-eat food items. So how the food was stored. Proper refrigeration, of course, is a concern, and home-based equipment is not suitable to operate in with the commercial style operation. So, and may not keep the temperature at appropriate rates.
Some indications that a vendor may not be licensed, the CDH says, are cooking out of their apartment or vendors asking you to meet them somewhere like a park for an order pickup. CDH says if you're curious if a vendor is licensed, you can ask them to provide that documentation. They say anyone who believes they've become ill or have concerns about unlicensed food vendors can alert the CDH. Joe, they do have an anonymous complaint form on their website that people can fill out.
Interesting. Okay, well, it's one of those things that, you don't think about it until it's being complained about in the community, but yeah, interesting situation. We'll have to keep our eyes on it. Thanks, Aspen, we appreciate it. We are learning more about what the surviving roommates texted each other the night 4 students were murdered at their house near the University of Idaho. In Dateline's exclusive interview with Lori Vallow, that will air tonight. Abby Davis has that and other details in the 411.
Text messages between the 2 surviving roommates the night of the quadruple Moscow murders have been released in new court documents, as well as the transcript of the initial 911 call. The documents show texts between the roommates where they talk about being scared and confused, seeing someone in a ski mask, and not being able to reach other people living in the house. One asked the other to run to her room. Those texts happened between 4:22 and 4:24 a.m. Court documents also show the surviving roommates called and texted 3 of the victims around the same time. The transcript of that 911 call placed that morning just before noon was also released in court filings. In it, 4 people are believed to be passing the phone around. They tell the dispatcher one of their roommates is not waking up and not breathing. They also told the dispatcher they saw a man in the house the night before. Toward the end of the conversation, one of the officers who was sent to the house says, "I think we have a homicide." Brian Koberger is accused of stabbing Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez to death. His trial is scheduled to start in August in Boise.
You're the most hated mom in America.
I heard that.
Are you misunderstood?
Absolutely.
We met Lori Vallow at a women's jail in Maricopa County. You remember the case, right? Who can forget it?
The media loves to take tragedies and turn them into crimes. I had a lot of tragedies in a row.
Perhaps she would finally tell us why. Why her children are dead. and her ex-husband and her lover's wife.
Are you keeping track?
Oh, yeah. Were all those awful events launched by a bit of pure chance? Or maybe something far more intentional?
I'm asking you a question. Did you watch your children die?
That's a really sad question.
You've made the decision to meet me for an on-camera interview because...
You've heard a lot of stuff, Keith. What I tell you will be the truth.
A quick reminder, you can watch an all-new episode of Dateline tonight featuring the very first television interview with Lori Vallow Daybell. The Eastern Idaho mom is convicted of killing 2 of her kids and her current husband's late wife. That starts at 8 o'clock right here on KTVB. It's almost time to spring your clocks forward an hour. Daylight saving time starts this Sunday at 2 a.m., so expect to miss out on an extra hour of sleep. Daylight saving time will continue through November 2nd. Before taking office, President Donald Trump said he would work to end daylight saving time across the country. That's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
In this week's Beyond the 208, Oregonians have the special opportunity to witness a lunar lander land on the moon. And the device used Columbia Sportswear technology to reach the moon's south pole. That happened just yesterday. Thomas Schultz with our sister station takes us to a Columbia watch party.
Fly us to the moon. With a little help from an outdoor company on Earth?
It's a real thrill.
A real thrill for Columbia CEO Tim Boyle and hundreds of employees.
It's absolutely incredible.
As they watched a lander named Athena touch down on the moon.
There aren't many companies that can claim, they went from global to intergalactic.
Columbia partnered with Initiative Machines to send Athena to the South Pole in hopes of finding ice in an area that's rarely been explored. And it couldn't have been done without the Pacific Northwest juggernaut.
It's just an honor, and it's so exciting to see that Pacific Northwest heritage blend so seamlessly with innovation and literally the next frontier in space.
Columbia kept the lander warm on its 9-day journey through tech it uses in jackets. That's tough to do in fluctuating space temperatures,
which are pretty extreme. They can range from minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit to plus 250 degrees Fahrenheit.
Haskell Beckham, VP of Innovation at Columbia, says the company also blocked solar radiation from affecting the lander, once again using tech found in the company's products. After they gather data of the product in space, Columbia officials say they can create even better products for us down here.
You take new insights and you can actually adopt those and integrate those into your consumer products to help people here on Earth.
Before blasting off again to even bigger adventures.
There are people in Washington, D.C. who want to go to Mars, and so we're ready to help do that.
While that lander's up in space on the moon, it'll be looking for a couple of things: ice and lunar soil. Now, NASA believes that soil could have big impacts for future explorers. They say lunar soil could be used for fuel or even breathable oxygen. In Northwest Portland, Thomas Schultz, KGW News.
All right, speaking of outer space, a sad note this week. George Lowe, the voice of Space Ghost from the cartoon Space Ghost Coast to Coast, he passed away this week at the age of 67. And Space Ghost Coast to Coast, it debuted in 1994 and aired for more than a decade on Cartoon Network as a part of the Adult Swim nighttime programming block, and was actually Cartoon Network's first original production. But why is this news on the 208? Well, in celebrating Space Ghost and George Lowe, I remembered an Idaho-centric argument that Space Ghost had with his colleague Zorak. Do you remember this?
And right here is Idaho, where the cheese comes from.
No, no, no.
What now?
Idaho is where potatoes come from.
You say potato and I say cheese.
Potato.
Cheese.
Potato.
Cheese.
So did Space Ghost have a point? Is Idaho where the cheese comes from? You're not going to believe this. According to data from the Idaho Department of Agriculture, Space Ghost is actually correct. Sort of. Take a look. Most recent data, which is from the year 2022, it ranks dairy as the top Idaho agriculture export. Idaho did rank #1 in the nation for potato output, but within the state, it's actually 4th on the list of our top commodities. Milk, which becomes cheese, is #1. In case you were wondering, cattle and calves at 2, haylage at 3rd. So Idaho is the potato place. We earned that reputation, but Space Ghost is correct. Idaho is where the cheese and many other dairy products comes from. Celebrating the work of George Lowe, you will also find some classic clips and moments. The cartoon talk show host interviewed everyone from Conan O'Brien to Buzz Aldrin to Bill Nye, even Al Roker. My favorite was when he talked to Bob Costas. So just remember, no matter what it is, there seems to always be an Idaho connection. Rest easy, Space Ghost. Let's head down to my home state of Colorado, where they have the 77th ski joring, I should call it. It was in Leadville, Colorado. And if you're not familiar with ski joring, it's an exciting competition that involves a skier being pulled down a course full of turns and jumps, and they're being pulled by a horse. That's right. It's for competitors, and it's for tradition and for fun. And Rachel Krause with our sister station in Denver has the story.
You all picked a heck of a day to come out, so let me explain it to you.
It takes something crazy to draw a crowd like this to 10,000 feet.
There's nothing else like skiing down Harrison Avenue in Leadville, Colorado.
You got a horse, you got a rope, you got a rider, and you got a skier. The rider has to guide that four-legged dose of power right down the middle of Harrison Avenue, while your skier has to make all the lateral motion left and right, going around the markers. Plus, over the course of the run, they've got to pick up those rings that you see hanging down the side, or else they're going to be hit with some penalties.
Probably 80% horse skill and then 20% skier.
While some skiers and riders meet only for this race, Nick and Cody,
we've been doing it forever in Leadville,
have been matched much longer.
We did it as little kids, and some of my best memories are out doing this.
Doing it as a family, as a team, just keeping that team aspect alive. And just with him, it's loyalty, you know.
The brothers ready to do their hometown proud. It's tradition.
Oh, it means a lot. It means a lot, yeah.
After watching dozens of teams take off, it's their turn.
Yep.
Here we go!
Oh yeah, no, it motivates you. That screaming it. You want to be good.
The pair putting down a clean, fast run in front of their hometown crowd, ready for the next round.
Oh yeah, yep. Ready to do it. Oh yeah.
While the excitement keeps them coming back,
we'll come back next year even better.
It's their brotherly bond strengthening this team.
We got 2-3 more good years in us. Yeah. And then I'll have to retire him.
The thrill of ski joring together is a family tradition Nick and Cody know they don't need to rein in.
We'll give it hell anyway.
Well, after the Magic Valley got all that precipitation yesterday, it ended today around noon, and now it's looking pretty clear all around the region. Besides some cloud coverage, temperatures are ranging from the 30s down in the mountains to 52 degrees in Boise. Something that has been notable in the Treasure Valley today is the sustained wind speeds. So Mountain Home and Boise are both seeing 18-mile-per-hour sustained winds at this point. There have been some gusts up to 20 miles per hour or so today as well. But we know that we have dry and warm conditions on the way for this weekend, just in time for us to spring forward, because we have a high pressure ridge that is building in from the west right now. But after the weekend, after we hit 61 degrees on Sunday, then we have a low system moving in. That's going to bring us more clouds and cooler temperatures by just a few degrees, but temps will still be near normal. And then by the middle of next week, we'll be colder, windier, and having more active weather overall. Here's a look at all the temperatures around the region. Again, the mountains are not too far off from the Magic Valley at this point. That's because the Magic Valley is still trying to climb its way up from yesterday. This is a look at the temperature change in the past 24 hours. So you can see the Magic Valley is 9 or 10 degrees warmer at this time than it was yesterday. Everywhere around the region besides Haley is looking like it's already starting to warm up for the weekend. So here's a look at the wind gusts. We're expecting those to continue for a little bit over the next 12 hours. It looks like the gusts are only going to persist until 6 o'clock or so, and then by 8 p.m. they die down quite a bit. They won't come to a dead stop, but they will significantly decrease from what we've been seeing today. Here's a weekend sneak peek for Boise. Tomorrow is expected to be 57 degrees for the high, sunny and clear for the most part. Sunday, a little bit more clouds will develop, but it's going to be very nice and seasonable. 61 degrees will finally be over 60 degrees as we approach springtime. Here's a look going even further forward to midweek, where I talked about that series of systems that's going to be rolling in. So late Wednesday is when we expect it to reach southwest Idaho, which you can see right here. There's just a lot of movement going on there. Snow and rain is a possibility. There's a potential to get half an inch of
rain on Thursday, and then there's a slight chance right now, 20% chance Thursday night that we could be seeing snow in Boise to wake up to on Friday morning. So looking forward to tomorrow, we have very light winds, 57 degrees. Sunday, we have that time change. We will spring forward by 1 hour. The sun will be setting at 7:44 p.m. So we will be having later sunsets, and we're pretty seasonable the rest of the week.
Okay, we have some comments, I believe. Let's take a look. B&B in Nampa writes, "Hi, Joe. Are the legislators close to being done? It's tiring, and I think they've done enough." Okay, so it's a great question. When I talk to lawmakers and state executives down at the State House, I get the feeling that we'll wrap up at some point, but I don't think it's probably within the next week or two. They are still working through a lot of the budgets, and I am told, and you might have even heard Speaker Moyle talk about it on the 208 this week, that there are some lawmakers that are already wanting to cut budgets down even further than the situation they have right now. So we will see how that plays out in real time, but in terms of them wrapping up probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we don't expect that, but we will keep you posted. Everybody have a nice weekend. It's beautiful weather. Maybe everyone go for a walk, take a deep breath, spring forward on Saturday into Sunday. All right, see you then.